This woman is the real villain of the movie Sinners. Not the vampires, not the clan people, Annie. Let me explain. See, Remick the vampire didn't want to unalive anybody. He wanted to build a community. His first victims were a white couple in a shed, and when he drank the husband's blood, he saw the memories. He saw that his uncle is planning a great injustice and using a jukebox as a trap for all the black people in the area. So Remick saw that injustice, he saw how special the people in the community are, and decided to give them freedom, immortality, and special powers. He didn't simply drink their blood and let them die. No, he allowed them to turn into vampires. Otherwise, he could have just snapped a neck or put a stake in their heart. He truly wanted to save them. Save them from injustice, save them from poverty, save them from persecutions and discriminations. He vocalized it himself a couple times in the movie. And we saw with our own two eyes how much happier all the turned became. They retained their memories, they were the same people, just with supernatural powers. They were all literally dancing and celebrating the new life, the new beginning. Yet Annie was the one who ruined it. She said, no, this is all sin, this is all not godlike, this is all just abomination, let's remain poor and miserable and go back to the cotton fields to the day we die. She left.
Well, all right. We are back in the building and we are going to be doing a review part 2 on Sinners. Yes, we are. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So how you doing today, Kim and Arlene?
Oh, doing well. It's Friday. Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you, Moya?
Well, I'm here, breathing. Could complain, but I'm not going to.
Who would listen anyway?
Exactly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let the family know about some updates if you haven't been paying attention or if you've been under a rock. And I can't speak for my compadres here, but I would definitely say go see this movie if you haven't already. It might be out of the box office soon in theaters, but it should be coming out on, I think it's coming out digitally on streaming services soon to a TV or a phone screen near you. But anyway, let's go ahead and read this article. Sinners box office hits major global milestone and is only the 7th movie this year to do so. This is from Screen Rant. Sinners has officially blown past yet another impressive box office milestone. The latest horror movie is the 5th feature from Ryan Coogler, who's known for his previous work on Creed and the Black Panther movies. Sinners sees Coogler reteam with Muse Michael B. Jordan to tell a genre-bending story about a duo of identical twin brothers, both played by Jordan, who returned to Mississippi in the 1930s only to discover a new evil awaits them. In addition to Jordan, Sinners cast includes Miles Catton, Wunmi Mosaku, and Haley Steinfeld. Per the numbers, Sinners has achieved another box office milestone, crossing the $340 million mark after being in theaters for over a month. This is composed primarily of its domestic box office. Wow. Domestic, which accounts for 260.9 million of its gross. The international markets tack on an extra 79.9 million. That is really impressive. What this means for Sinners. All right. With this recent milestone, Sinners has become the 7th movie of 2025 to pass the 340 million mark. This ranking is partially attributable to numbers from ENT Group, which revealed that the Chinese franchise movie Detective Chinatown 19 had a 489.5 million gross overall, making it the number 3 highest grossing movie of the year. China also had a hit this year with Ne Zha 2, but several of these other top 7 films are big American movies. This includes a Minecraft movie, Captain America Brave New World. Shout out to Captain America. and the just released live action adaptation of Lilo and Stitch. For those that don't know or probably really don't care about Captain America, he is played by, I always forget the brother's name. Man, let me look it up real quick. I don't want to say, let's see. Is it Anthony Mackie? I think
Mackie.
it's,
Yeah, I can see
I
him
think
in
it's
my
Anthony
see
Mackie,
him
right?
in my head. Yeah, Anthony Mackie sounds right, but you might want to
Yeah,
confirm.
let me double check here. Captain America, which is on streaming and is being played on Disney. I'll probably do a review on that, but let me see, just double check here. Who plays okay, Captain America cast. I want to say it's Anthony Mackie. Yes, I am correct. Anthony Mackie is in the movie and is the lead actor in that movie. So I think Harrison Ford actually plays, I guess they call it the Red Hulk or whatever. So shout out to Harrison Ford. All right, let's continue.
Let me just say this, but Anthony Mackie is a very underrated actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he actually is in a very quiet movie that didn't get a lot of play, but it's called Night Catches Us. It's like a spin on the Black Panthers. If you ever want to watch that, yeah, Night Catches Us. Him and Kerry Washington.
All right, Night Catches Us. Thanks for that, Darlene. All right, crossing the 340 million mark is one of several key box office milestones that Sinners has made this far. The movie is one of Warner Brothers' top 30 highest grossing movies of all time in North America. Wait a minute. We got to repeat that. The movie is one of Warner Brothers, okay? For those who haven't seen our, I think it was called Blacklisted documentary, you can go check it out here on even the Mass Media Group. We do mention Warner Brothers, but once again, the movie is one of Warner Brothers' top 30 family, top 30 highest grossing movies of all time in North America. That is crazy. Helping justify the studio's big budget allocation for the film at around 90 million. It is also the number 8 highest grossing horror film of all time at the worldwide box office, passing popular titles like A Quiet Place and The Conjuring. Its status on the several ranked lists shows just how successful Sinners has become, despite early headlines of its failure. Sinners is set to release digitally on June 3rd, so this may be the last major milestone it hits in theaters, though the 350 million mark is not far away. But if this is the culmination of Sinners' box office run, what a run it has had. This film is an original horror movie that weaves history and music within its genre tendencies. Even from a major studio, this is an unlikely success. What does that mean anyway? This is a big win that could pave the way not only for Coogler in his future projects, but for other innovative filmmakers down the line. What does the writer mean by this is an unlikely success?
I
trying to
don't
figure
know.
that
And
out.
what does the writer mean by early failure projections or whatever you just said? Because last I checked, opening weekend, it opened up to $48 million and it had a 90 million budget. I wouldn't exactly call that a failure.
Yeah, I mean, it basically made half its budget up in the first opening.
Right.
So what was she talking about?
Exactly.
I'm smelling a little hateration.
Mhm.
Especially since, do you believe since COVID that people have gone back to the theaters in mass? I don't think so.
Nah.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even when we went to see it, and we saw it, a little bit later, it was like 2, 3 weeks in by the time we made it to the theater, and it definitely was not a packed house.
Mm-mm.
There's a comment on there by a user named Tega. They, he, she said, at this point, we can put to bed the question of whether, WHETHER, not like the weather forecast. At this point, we can put to bed the question of whether black majority cast movies are profitable. Just like any other film, good storytelling, proper execution will win out every time.
Hmm.
All
Do
right.
you remember you mentioned Blacklisted? Do you remember what we were discussing in Blacklisted on Warner Brothers? Was Warner Brothers are they the ones that produced Blade?
I think that's what's New Line Cinema. Let's see, Blade. I think you might be right. It's just I don't know New Line Cinemas. Let's see. Who produced Blade? Movie. I think it's New Line Cinema with Warner Brothers.
I
Let me
mean,
see.
who knows what kind of mergers, but I
Yeah,
know
it was distributed. I can't believe I actually remember that. So it was distributed by New Line Cinema. And I'm sorry, Ken, you're about to make a point.
oh, just that Blade saved the day. Yeah, so we know that black movies do well at the box office.
Yeah, so as you can, hopefully my screen isn't too blurry here. So yeah, Blade, of course, is with Wesley Snipes. And yeah, that was a budget of 45 million with a box office of 131 million. And that, that's interesting because I remember when that movie, and we obviously go into it in more depth in Blacklisted, but man, I remember when that movie came out and it really changed the film industry in terms of like comic book heroes. Like they stepped it up like 8, 9, 10 times.
Right, they saw that it
Yeah.
was successful, so then they ushered in a bunch of white hero characters. Is what happened.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's kind of the same thing with Blade. I mean, it wasn't a big fanfare when it first was released, but man, once that movie came out, people they just flocked to the movie theaters. And it's interesting because, with Ryan Coogler dealing with vampires, this one is dealing with vampires, and
Yeah.
but it's just interesting because it's like, at least within this perspective with, two black led characters in it, it gives it a different feel, even though this was produced and written by, two white dudes or three white dudes. I can't remember at the top of my head. And Ryan Coogler is obviously Black American. But still, I mean, with the involvement with Wesley Snipes, is that Amon Ra Films? I think that might be his production brand or film company. Could be wrong. Don't quote me. Yeah, I mean, maybe his influence, along with the writer and director, gave it a different take on it, because normally, with some of these vampire movies, it's just like we're just gonna bite everybody and suck their blood.
Well, like the article that you read mentioned, horror movies typically don't do well, and both of these are in the horror genre. So you can see that the black filmmakers and black led films are breaking genre records.
Speaking of genres, I'm going to lean on Kim and Umoya for this one. I guess because I'm not in the film industry, and I keep hearing about it, but I necessarily didn't think Sinners was a horror movie.
Yeah,
And
actually, I was gonna ask you, if you two felt that, it was overly done on the horror stuff.
you mean is it overly done as portrayed as a horror movie, or did I think it was a horror movie?
Both.
Well, I think it's because again, I'm gonna lean on you and Kim. Um, I didn't think it was a horror movie. Yes, they had vampires in there, but I just didn't think it was a horror movie. Unless you want to say the horror of the vampires um, stealing our history and stealing in the exploitation of them. I mean, that's horror, but not in the sense of a horror movie.
Right, you hit the nail on the head. That's what I was going to say as well. It was a horror movie in far as vampires being a metaphor for colonization and
Mhm.
appropriation of our histories
History,
and
yes, but
talents
a
and
horror
things of that
movie,
nature.
no.
Yeah. I mean, the
No.
vampires don't even show up until almost halfway through the movie, so I don't think that was the primary focus.
Mm-mm. So also, I think maybe they're trying to say it's a horror movie without, you know, looking at how we feel, Kim and I, um, to take away the historical meaning of the movie. I mean, that's just how I'm feeling about it. Because even when we went to see it, I just didn't feel horror. I mean, there was a little bits where we all know that I jumped at a couple of scenes. But it wasn't because it was a horror movie. I just think they just using that term to take away the meaning of this historical film that is presented. And like Kim says, the colonization, the exploitation, the theft of us, and then they take it on, as if it's theirs.
Right. And I mean, I think just like I said, the connection with the vampires is what puts it in the horror genre. Because what other genre would you put it in? I mean, you're not going to put it in a drama. I mean, where else would you put it?
Why wouldn't you put it in drama? Just tell me. I'm leaning on you and your Moria because this is really not my lane. Why wouldn't you put it in drama?
I mean, you technically could, but because of the violence and the vampires and the traditional ways that horror genres play out in films would probably lend more towards the horror. But I mean, you technically could probably call it a drama, but I would think a drama would be more like what's that movie that Denzel was it Fences?
That's what I think of when I think of dramas
Yeah.
too. It wouldn't be episodic, so I mean, guess you just got to get in where you fit in.
Well, that's and shout out to Ryan Coogler and I'm not saying other ethnic people or other people groups don't do this, but oftentimes Black Americans, we tend to bend genres and do and tend to float kind of through genres, mix stuff. That's kind of been our history. And so I think with this movie, Ryan Coogler, even though they're calling it a horror, I don't think he relied heavily, if at all, being a horror movie, but actually telling a really good story that could, I mean, if he wanted to remove the vampires, I mean, maybe he could have put in some other, type of antagonist to be in there, but
what, like the KKK? If it was from the KKK,
right.
That would have been just a straight drama or period piece.
Yeah, that still would have been terrorism.
Yeah, that would be horror.
Yeah, horror. So in the sense, and I guess this may be because I'm not a film person, but when I think of horror, because I grew up in the watching in the 70s, you're talking King Kong. The
you said you think King Kong would be a horror film to you?
Yeah, a monster movie. Yeah, I mean that's in my day. Yeah, monster movie, yeah. That so I know, and then of course, I'm not a again. I'm not going to say this again, but I'm not a movie goer as well either.
Well,
So
you do watch movies, so you have a
no,
pretty
no,
good
I may
sense.
watch some movies, but I'm sticking to a lot of the '70s movies. I really am, and I'm more of an episodic person.
Mm.
I love series,
Did
black
did you
series.
ever, speaking of grotesque, or I guess they would call it horror? Did you ever watch not The Weekend? Kim, what's that episodic that was pretty popular? The Living Dead. Is it called The
No,
Living Dead?
no, The Living Dead. No, I wouldn't, and I probably would never.
I've
That's
never seen it.
yeah.
Have you seen it, Kim?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
The
watched
Walking Dead.
that.
The Walking
The
Dead. My
Walking
fault.
Dead.
The
Yeah,
Walking
yeah,
Dead.
Would you say
yeah.
The Living Dead?
I said The Living Dead. We got a lot of people
In The
living
Living
like
Dead.
for sure, and I'm not gonna throw in the CLBC. I mean, my bad. Anyway, sorry, Kim. Go ahead.
No, I watched it. I mean, I watched it. Some of the early. What are we calling it? What do you call it when it goes on and on and on? That's what happened. It just went on and on a little bit too long, so I had
The
to.
series, a series.
Yeah, series.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many it had. It just seemed to go on forever, and I kind of fell off. But it was a decent watch in the beginning.
Yeah, I tried to watch the first episode, and I was just like, nah. I couldn't. I was like, it just wasn't for me. But a lot of people have rave reviews about it. They're just like, oh, you gotta watch it. It's really good. I just couldn't
Mm.
get into it. Now there
Mhm.
were some black characters in there too, right?
Yeah, yeah, there were a few black characters in there, but I mean that goes. So was that a horror series or?
I would say so. I mean, if you're talking
Yeah.
about zombies, I'd probably put that
Mm,
in
okay.
the
And then
horror,
they always say with these horror movies, the black people is always the first to die. So
Right.
right?
I mean, because there was a storyline, drama,
hmm
in that as well. So I guess adding the creatures makes it a horror.
Yeah.
hmm
All right. So outside of that, I mean, overall, what did y'all think about the movie? Like, what would you rate it for 5 stars?
I would probably give it a very, very close to 5 because it was very, very entertaining. I would love to watch it again because I was so busy watching it, trying to follow all the characters. I'm sure there's some nuances that I missed, and I can't wait for it to come on streaming. I will watch it again. Um, I thought it was really good. Um,
Yeah, on the first
yeah.
pass, I would give it,
hmm
5-star
hmm
rating. Just kind of some of my takeaways. And when watching it, I've only seen it one time. Like Arlene said, if I see it a few more times, might be able to review more on a granular level.
hmm
But just
Because
initially,
Kim, if you're talking about more granular messages, because the dancing, you said
the
you really have to go back
dancing.
because you said where's the twerking? I'm like twerking. You didn't even see the ballerina. I actually thought that scene was brilliant.
Right, right.
Right,
That
yeah.
scene kind of, it took me a moment to register what was going on with the
hmm
historical timelines when Sammy was singing and invoking the ancestors. And kind of the first pattern interrupt I saw was the girl dressed in the bebop twerking. I was like, wait a minute, she doesn't look like she belongs there. But apparently, it was a compilation throughout history, different, you know, uh,
Genres about the
music genres.
ballerina,
Uh-huh,
Misty
uh-huh.
Copeland, then the take on the what did you guys call it in the '80s? Scratching.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
with the
Yeah,
DJs and the
DJs
Yeah,
and
I was just
yeah
so
the
scratching.
focused on,
records.
like I said, the African Bambaataa character. I'm like, kind of
Yes.
like, what's going on? And then when I
African
saw
Bambaataa.
when I
Yeah.
saw the lady twerk, and I'm like, wait a minute, she doesn't belong there. And then I kind of got into what was actually happening. So yeah, I definitely
hmm
could use another watch. So basically, the overall theme that I saw was the colonization of the vampires trying to come in, like we saw with the clip earlier with the white guy talking. He was saying that Annie was the villain and that the vampire was the guy because they were trying to give him eternal life. So I mean, I guess that's how the colonizers think, that they're trying to do you a favor,
favor.
even though what they were
Yeah.
offering them was death,
Mhm,
a brutal death.
A brutal
doing a
death.
favor, stealing their creativity, um, all that. The exploitation of our music. Not being able to own our masters. I mean, we could talk about who's been, whether it's been proven or not, which artist has been killed behind stuff like that. Trying to own their own masters. But that's another story.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
wanted to turn, and they said, we could let the rest of y'all go. We just want Sammy, because they wanted Sammy's talents and his ability to reach back to the ancestors through time. And we could say the same with Annie, that they would have liked to have her, magical powers, which is another thing that these colonizers have appropriated from our culture, as we know.
So they didn't want cornbread.
Cornbread, he was just, kind of an extra little bodyguard,
Shout out to cornbread.
Now, shout out, but he had to, one of the keenest part. It'd be your own.
I know it'd be your.
I mean,
It'd
that
be
was
your
just
own
hilarious.
people. But speaking of cornbread, my other the other thing I picked up on when we were watching it was when Mary went out there to interact with the vampires, and I was like, see, it always be white people. It'd be the white people going out there, getting everybody else in trouble, bringing this mess back to the community. So if she happened to win out there, that whole thing might not have spiraled like that. But also cornbread, this is what I was thinking. Cornbread, when he went out to use the bathroom, he also got caught up at that time. And I don't know if I missed it. I'm like, is there not a bathroom in the juke joint? Why did he go out there?
Well, it was 1932. 1932.
I mean, so everybody would have to go outside to use the bathroom.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just saying it seemed like they built the juke joint in one day. So I don't know. There's no running water, no plumbing. This is 1932 Mississippi.
Okay, so we'll give them a
So
pass
they
on
had-
that.
Give them a pass.
Our
on that.
house.
But Mary actually went out there intentionally to engage with them, and I was like, okay, here we go. The white looking people, even though that she's supposed to be black, even though I don't believe her the actual actress is Black American in any way, but I'm like, yeah, it'd be these white people that always bring the trouble around. And then my last point on that, with Grace, the Asian lady that actually let him in, I'm like, it's these buffer class people that only care about themselves, or the other problematic people that let all this debauchery, or whatever you want to call it, into our communities. The whites. And
okay, yes, but we can't let go of the coons too. We got some coons in Black American, ethnicity as well. So we can't let them off the hook either. Again,
all right, but I'm
gotta put them all in the bucket.
But I'm not talking about them right now. Who would be the coon in this movie?
That's interesting. Who would be? I don't know if Ryan Coogler actually had a coon in this one. Who would be
exactly? That's why we got to talk about who the problems are, the problems that we see.
I mean, okay, so obviously once they got bit, I think they kind of acted coon-ish or Sambo-ish, right? But not. I mean, even Michael B. Jordan's character, I can't remember who was it, Stax or.
I mean, he was both of them.
Both of them, Smoke and Stack, and I thought he did a wonderful job playing those twins. Although at first I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" I was like, "What?" And being a twin myself, that was good. And I think I said this to you and Kim. To me, it put me in a frame of mind from the I'm gonna say the late '60s, '70s, when it was the Patty Duke show, where she played twin cousins, not actually
Mm.
twin siblings, but they were cousins, but they were identical, and so you actually saw the different personalities. The same with Smoke and Stack. You know, you saw those different personalities, and after a minute, I was able to distinguish one from the other.
Right. In the
Yeah.
beginning, I
In the
was like,
beginning, I
okay,
didn't.
how am I gonna tell them
Tell 'em
apart? And
apart.
then I noticed that Smoke had on the blue and Stack had on red, so that's how I was able to tell them apart. And Smoke was always smoking on something, so that's how I told them apart in the beginning.
But then
Yeah,
the personalities came out though.
Yeah, but then the
Yeah,
personalities came up. But
out.
in the beginning, I'm
The
like,
beginning,
okay,
I
how
was
am I gonna tell
confused.
these people apart? And then I was like, okay, he's got on blue, he's got on red, he always smoking something.
And then I was thinking he was cheating because of the girlfriend Mary, and then what's the sister's name? We just spoke her name,
Annie.
Annie. You know, I said, well, he's got two women. You know, so I was a little confused in the beginning. Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie.
Takes a little minute to register.
Yeah, it took a minute.
well, yeah, that was my second time watching it, and I definitely had a chance to have a different lens. I think the first time I watched it, I just watched it with an eye of, let me just go into it just as a viewer and check it out. But you know, because I am a filmmaker, I had a chance to actually, you know, look more into the technical side of things, and it was well done. I even went and saw a couple videos on how they actually pulled it off with Michael B. Jordan's character playing, you know, the twins in the two role, and it's phenomenal. I mean, the way that they used, you know, cameras and CGI. I mean, I haven't really seen anything like that to that magnitude. Like, you know, maybe in some Marvel movies, you know, because I mean, those are super high budgeted movies, you know, so you would kind of expect it, but man, they did a great job.
Well, also, did you read where Michael, and of course, I don't have these people's name in front of me, but Michael B. Jordan knew some film directors, film artists, and they happened to be twins. So he invited them. This is what I read. He invited them on the set so he can get that nuances of, you know, how twins, especially identical same-sex twins, you know, how they interact in that twin thing that, you know, we supposedly have, you know. So he had them actually on the set to help him with the twin thing.
So it's interesting when you talk about twins. In my first and only feature film, it's called House of Ani. I don't know if it's still on Amazon. It might be down. I don't know. But anyway, one of the characters the character in itself doesn't have a twin, but I actually casted her sister, who's her twin, to play her alter ego in the film, which would made it a lot easier to film. Because, you know, instead of me having to, you know, shoot you know, two actresses or the same actress in a different frame, I was able to, you know, capture the scene with both of them in there, and it was just a brilliant scene, and I was just so appreciative for both of their efforts and time, because you know, they were professional, so shout out to them. But the way that they did it, I was actually kind of shocked, you know, because like Ryan Coogler, he could have probably just even used a whole different, you know, character to portray, you know,
yeah, because they could have been
a
fraternal twins. They didn't have to be identical.
Right, fraternal or just not even been twins.
Well,
could have been cousins, brothers, you know. I don't know. I mean, Kim, we're talking about this? I don't know. This is conjecture. This is rumors. Okay, so don't say even the mass media is spreading rumors. Okay, so we don't know. But
What?
I think, what's his name? Majors? I can't remember his
Oh, Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan
Yeah,
Majors.
I did
Yeah.
see something that he was tapped to play one of the roles until he got into his situation.
Oh, he was tapped to play one of the roles in Sinners before his problems.
Yeah, I have
Mm,
seen
okay.
that
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
writing.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Mhm. But no,
Yeah.
I like the twin aspect, and I
Mm-hmm.
like the creativity that it added to the movie. Him playing both roles, and like you said, even though it's the same person, he was able to deliver two distinctly different characters. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was very interesting. So, as far as the technical aspect, yeah, that's why I have to give it a thumbs up, two thumbs up. And then also just really the cinematography and some of the seamless cuts in the movie. I thought they did
Yeah.
an amazing
Amazing
job.
job.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
putting you in a
Mm-hmm.
different
Era.
scene. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just putting you in a different scene of the movie through
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
cuts and
Mm-hmm.
transitions that they took.
Mm-hmm. And another interesting thing about Michael B. Jordan, I didn't watch The Wire when it was the big thing. I actually was able to watch it maybe a couple of years ago because they had a month free of Showtime, so I snatched that. And he was a young Michael B. Jordan. His first, I'm gonna say it was his first feature, but don't quote me on that. And his character got killed. And
Hmm.
this young man, Michael B. Jordan, was so distraught because they killed his character, and he said, "Oh my God, my whole career is ended. I'll never get hired again." He almost quit acting. He was so distraught about that. And
Hmm.
I'm not sure who talked him off the ledge, but he wasn't going to act again because he was just like, "Why did they kill my character?" Because he thought I'm worthy. But he was young. Maybe he didn't realize characters die, especially in episodic series. They die. You
Mhm.
know. And then the next thing I saw him in was uh, uh, what's the brother got murdered in
Fruitville Station.
Brookfield Station. That's
Yeah,
the
Oh,
and
Oscar
him
that's
and
the
Grant.
him and Ryan Coogler been rocking ever since.
yeah, that was the second thing I saw him in. So, and I just want to thank whoever talked him off the ledge. Thank you because he's been a mainstay for the black community. We need him.
Right.
Uh,
And
yeah.
like I said, Ryan Coogler has
Mm-hmm.
definitely given his career staying power.
Stage. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another thing before we break out of here was it was very interesting kind of the I don't know if we want to use contrast or maybe they did complement each other or not, but how they infused or talked about, religion. I
Mm,
think it was maybe some form of Christianity and hoodoo
mm-hmm.
in the movie. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
um, because oftentimes, uh, you know, other forms outside of the three main religions that basically overwhelm and consume, uh, you know, the world globally. And oftentimes we have different perspectives on what we call God, the universe, et cetera, um, is stereotyped and troped. And, especially through Hollywood, with voodoo and hoodoo and all this other stuff, especially early on, it was just like so stereotyped. But
Well, since it's stereotyped more, can you let our audience know? Because I really don't know the difference between hoodoo and voodoo.
well, okay, so from my understanding, and don't quote me, but Badoon it comes from uh, basically the west coast of Africa, and I'm not gonna go into like the etymology or the, the true nature of it because I'm not a Badoon practitioner, so I don't know. But from my understanding, its principles are basically with nature, and they do some rituals that some people may look at as being different. I'll just put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's the origin of Badun, basically coming from like West Africa. I think some of the current countries, I guess you call it, because I don't know if there were countries back then. They're probably named something different. It's like around the Nigeria, the Yoruba. Some of those might, still carry it on. And then it came over to some of the Caribbean islands. I think Santa Maria. I think that's what it's called out there. I could be wrong. So it pretty much stayed in those particular areas. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't move up into the United States, because it may have, in remnants, came up to, places like Louisiana. I was going to call it Louisville. Louisiana may have mixed in there a little bit. But for the most part, hoodoo is more of kind of a root work concept here in the United States. It may have some like spiritual things, but it's more like dealing with like the land and the roots in itself. So that's my understanding. Obviously, probably Badun has some like root practices, but hoodoo is kind of more of a Black American concept or idea here in America.
Exactly, that our ancestors practiced and created. So, with that being said, was it appropriate? Was it appropriate to have a non-Black American actress playing the role of the, hoodoo spiritualist practitioner? I'm sorry, I don't know the actress name that played Annie, but she is definitely not a Black American. So, I mean, is that a role that should have been reserved for one of our ancestors, since it's our ancestral practice?
Well, Kim, I think you and I are always going to say yes to that question. But then again, I can't get mad at Ryan Coogler for this film for one little mistake. But I mean, I'm pro Black American, so no matter what, those come first. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. Some people have the ideology that it's just a character, and I mean, doesn't really matter, who plays the role. I don't know. I mean,
But then,
I don't know.
with that being said, Kim and I, we always say, when I think about what we always say, is as long as it's not an iconic Black American historical figure.
I mean, but it's our iconic ancestral hoodoo practices. So
I mean, I'm always going for Black Americans. I mean, you get no argument here, but I'm just saying, yeah.
No, I mean, Kim, you bring up a valid point.
Yes.
Right. I mean, if you're of the soil, then you could probably relate to it a little bit more.
So, I mean, is that a mistake, or is that intentional to, kind of blur lines?
Well, this was a very small line that was blurred. I would like to think she got a call up. She went for the what do they call it?
Auditions.
Audition, and she got the role. I really want to think it was that simple. No.
Maybe. I mean, I don't. Maybe it wasn't. We don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he scored everywhere else though, but so I'm gonna let that one go.
I mean,
I agree with you, but I agree with you 100%, Kim. I agree with you.
Right. I mean, and even using Mary in her role, and she.
But there's a lot of
not of the lineage. So I mean, I just have to think was it intentional choices, to use the actual white.
But when you say Mary, because clearly she's not a descendant, but there's been so many Marys.
Yeah,
in our
there's been so many
histories.
marriages, and we talked about
Yeah,
this. Me and you already
yeah.
talked about this. Splendor in the Grass. I'm like, she
Hmm.
wasn't black either,
No,
and
she
that,
wasn't.
you know.
Mm-mm.
So
I mean, we could talk about Sparkle. We could talk about Imitation of Lives. We could talk about, what, the first Imitation of Life, they did use Freddie Washington, who was a Black American, but that second Imitation of Life, they did not. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So, I mean, I get it, but
they
I
use
mean,
a
we have
straight up
marriage
white
in our
person.
community. We have marriage in our communities.
We do,
We
we do.
do.
So if I'm understanding what y'all saying, so you're saying passing, I guess
Mm-hmm.
people who could pass.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. My I guess you could say my cousin maybe fall into that category. But
I
yeah, I
mean,
mean
she
he's
falls in the category by her looks, or does she fall into the category of passing?
well, he definitely falls in the
He,
category
okay,
of passing
yeah, but
for
has he
sure.
passed?
Yeah,
Has he
like you
passed?
like, dude, I probably couldn't tell. But I mean, he does have some, what do you ever want a descendant? So I I don't know, but I thought, let's just call it what it is.
Mhm.
She looks straight white. Like, I
Straight
mean,
white.
for real,
Because
can
she
maybe.
is.
Yeah, I was just like, I mean, it wasn't even like maybe she might be, but nah, it was just like, so I don't know. I thought that was an interesting uh, casting decision by
Yes.
him. 'Cause,
Right, and
you
maybe
know,
that was deliberate because he showed her, like I said in the beginning of this review, that it was the white people who bring in the trouble in, letting the trouble in.
Mhm. Mhm.
letting the trouble in.
Letting the trouble. I mean, there was a book, and I just googled it so I could have the correct name. By Neela Larson, Passing. And it's a great book, but they did a horrible job with the movie that was on Netflix. I think you saw it, Kim. I told you watching it was terrible. But Passing is such a commonplace. I mean, you guys, you've seen pictures of my family. My niece, who's an attorney, had to tell her colleagues that she was black because they were saying too many in jokes in the break room.
Wow.
She told me, she said, not only, no, I'm facing racism, sexism, but she just had to tell them, I'm black. Can we stop? Because they did. I mean, I don't know if she went into that office and said, well, I'm not going to tell them what I am. Just accept me. And they didn't accept her as a woman nor as a black person. And she had to tell them because she couldn't handle the in jokes. I'm just saying.
Wow.
So we
Yeah.
have people who can pass.
Well,
And they did a terrible job with the book called Passing. Netflix, they had it was just a horrible. It was.
I
they did a
mean,
terrible job.
didn't neither one of them look like they could pass for either
It was
anything
terrible.
but black.
They didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
But that's why it was shot in black and white, and then we'll get back to Sinners, to
Yeah.
kind of,
mask.
thank you. That's a great
Mask.
word. Mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just using a white person, that just, just
Cosplay.
yeah, just
They've been doing it for
cosplay.
years,
Been
years
doing
and
it for
years.
doing it for
For
years.
years. And then another thing that came out, well, I had read an article about it, but I kind of knew this history anyway. About there was a lot of criticism of having the Chinese store owners there, and the black folks didn't have businesses, that kind of thing. Come on, a new immigrant comes in before your first American citizens, and they're able to open up shop.
Mm-hmm.
So that was there, and there was a lot of migration to Mississippi when especially during the first wave of migration when we left the South in Mississippi and headed out. So they came in, and they were able to open up shops where we couldn't.
Right. That's believable. Some of the think pieces that I heard on it said what wasn't believable is that you know, the Asians were able to operate in the white communities because, as we know, they don't
That
let
didn't
them in.
happen.
They don't let them
Mm-mm.
into the white
Mm-mm.
communities. They send
Mm-mm.
them right on over to our communities, and like you said, to take the opportunities
Yeah.
from people in our community and
Mhm.
to take the money out of our community.
Communities. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just, I mean, you mentioned the N word, Darlene,
Mm.
and I know we probably need to get back to Sinners. You know, we're going off
Well,
topic
they
here.
said the N word all through Center, so
Yeah, well, they did, but you know,
yeah.
it wasn't like, I mean, they did say it, but
Yeah.
you know, I've heard worse
Worse.
movies like
Mhm.
I can't remember what's that movie with Quentin
The
Tarantino,
Django.
Yeah. No,
Django, and also
I know which one you're talking about. I'm
uh,
uh,
I just had it.
with Vin Rings in it.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Yeah. And let me be. I said the N word because I actually don't use the N word. I was not offended by it in Sinners, and it depends on what movie. Because like I said, I don't watch a lot of movies. It depends on what I'm watching. If they say the N word, it doesn't offend me. I just personally don't use it.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm not offended by it, but in the context, it
Right.
depends on what the context is. Yeah.
So, well, my point also, in and outside of Sinners, it seems like there's been an uptick in
In
terms
the use of the word.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
like I've been seeing, you know, especially them folks, just saying it all out loud with no reservation.
Mm.
I think Kim told me about a story, and I really haven't followed it, about a white woman who
Oh, yeah.
called this young
Little boy.
boy N-word, and she got money.
Mhm.
Right, right.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very profitable, or
Mhm.
can be. I mean, I
Mhm.
think the Black American community was able to block her blessings, but because she got the GoFundMe shut down because she was like, there she's profiting off of hate speech. So I don't think she was
Mhm.
able to get those donations, but people donated a bunch of money, like $1 million, if not more. So
Mm.
it's profitable.
Mm. Mhm.
Wow.
Mm.
Well,
And I
speaking of
think the little boy was like only 5, and he lived on the spectrum, and they thought, why? Number one, he's a little kid, black, and then he has autism.
wow,
Yeah, so profitable on one hand, but there's a story that's trending now about some white guy who went into a bar calling
Mm.
people,
oh yeah, I
dropping
saw
a bunch of
that.
N bombs, and I think he got
Mhm.
stripped naked and beat down. So, I mean, proceed with caution. Proceed with caution when using that
Mhm.
word.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that I mean, for me, eventually, if not already, and I don't think they have, but that's definitely a hate speech
Mhm.
word.
It,
Mhm.
it it depends on who's saying it and the inflection. In my opinion, I've always, just because the way I've grown up, seen it as a term of endearment
No,
within the,
no,
No, no,
within the
Kim. No, no,
you
community.
one of
No,
them.
no, no,
I'm
no,
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 I'm
Kim.
Ah,
No,
talking
no,
about
Kim.
my experience. I'm
No,
talking
no, no,
about
no,
my
no.
experience.
And I've heard people say that, and I've seen that, but and I'm
mm-mm.
okay with the word in context, but I never use it myself. You'd have to really do something for me to but when I say the N word, I have a whole bunch of other words that I string along with it.
That follow up with it. Huh?
Yes, so, but Kim, yes, you are correct. People do look at it as a term of endearment, and almost they look at it as, taking the sting out and bringing it back home, that kind
Right,
of
taking
thing.
the steam out, bringing it back
Mhm.
home, claiming
Mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
like I said, that is just my experience growing up. My elementary school, uh, our little drill team had drills with the word in it. Okay,
Mm-mm.
yes, I'm a
Mm-mm.
Mm.
cuckoo in from a cuckoo
And y'all said that
tune.
at the games, or you didn't use those ones?
Yeah.
Oh my!
Wow.
Wow.
And I
Mm-mm.
guess the white people was like, we got to break this up, and then we started getting bussed across town shortly after.
Mm.
So they put
Mhm.
the end to that pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, that was just part of my upbringing. I mean, the
Mm.
adults, everybody. I mean, it was just, wasn't nothing but thing.
Okay.
Mm.
That must have been around y'all, cause that wasn't my experience.
Yeah, we've all
I
had,
was like,
we've all had
you
different
say the
experiences.
ER or the A,
The A, the
you gonna
A.
get whooped. You
Mm.
about to get whooped.
I mean,
So
it is a matter of time and the period when you grow up because in
yeah,
my day, uh, uh, you call somebody black, they was ready to fight. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying. Or the song White Patty, you don't shine, call me a, and I'm gonna beat you behind. You know,
mm,
so I'm just saying it's generational for real, for sure.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
depends.
it depends. You know, you call you black, why about to beat your butt? You know, I ain't black. I'm a
Yeah, but
Negro. I'm
so
colored.
I can't get mad at the
color,
community. I can't
Color.
get mad at the community, for
color.
using the term, but anybody outside of the community definitely
Mhm.
is out
But you know,
of
that's their
bounds.
argument, Kim, that they use. You know, you use it, why can't I? I mean, that's just the argument. So where do we draw the line?
I mean, that's just
Right.
like, yeah, I could talk bad about my family members, but they my family. But you say something, you gonna catch these hands. I mean, I could do it. Just
You
because I
can.
do it, don't mean you could do it. Period.
Yeah.
Papa that.
Paparazzi that, huh? All right. Well, as always, I appreciate your time, Kim and Darlene, and I'm glad we had a chance to go see the movie together to
Yes,
experience
finally
it.
got a chance to go see the movie.
And maybe we can have a watch party when it comes live.
Maybe we
I
can.
mean, we streaming,
Maybe we
you know.
can. Maybe
Because
we
I
can.
definitely want to watch it again. I'm like, and like I say, I mean, it's not like I don't watch movies, but movies are not my thing.
Right, right. But
Um,
it definitely is a must see in
but
the
it's a must
theater if
see.
you
It's
can
a
make it
must
to the
see.
theater, but definitely going to be watching it again on streaming with the international appeal of this film. Like you said, Moya, it's done very well internationally. My daughter was just getting back from Australia the opening weekend, and she's talked about walking in the door, talking about you want to go see Sinners. I'm like, what you know about Sinners? You just touched down. How you what you know about Sinners? And she says it was all over, Australia. That's all they had was billboards on Sinners, woo woo woo. But I'm like, well, what else were they talking about? America wise in Australia, and she was like, nothing really. That was just like the main thing they was talking about. But I did notice since we sat and watched the end credits, which I always do anyways when I go to the
Mhm.
movies, is watch the end credit because there is an end credit scene. So you do want to wait till the credits roll. If you go see it in the theater, you want to wait till the last credit roll. And I noticed that one of their technical production FX teams was in Australia. I was like, oh, no
Mm,
wonder Australia was blowing it
mm,
up because they are
mm,
obviously had
mhm,
something to do with it.
mhm,
hmm
mm,
And speaking of colonization, my daughter has sent me a picture. I said I shared it with you, Darlene, and she got a Subway sandwich in
mm,
Australia. I'm like, Subway in Australia? You
mhm.
don't want to eat any of their cultural cuisines or anything like that? I was like, what's their cultural cuisine? She was like, I don't know. Basically they've been colonized. Basically they've been colonized, so they do, what the Americans do. So.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring up the fact that the Asian store, as Kim mentioned, was centered, on white people as well. But they accepted American currency. But then when you saw the little girl go to Annie's store, she had quote unquote fake dollars or wooden nickels, as we can call it, and she accepted that as currency and gave the little girl what her mother wanted. And then the Michael B. Jordan character was saying, how are you going to survive? But what she was saying, that this is the only way, because the folks didn't have any money, but this is the only way that they can get what they need. But then how is Annie herself, how is she going to build up her commerce when she can't take that same fake money and do anything with it? So that's the difference that we see in entrepreneurship during this time in Mississippi, or we could even say it now. What was going on? Why is the Asian folk able to elevate and the black community not?
Right. And
Mhm.
you'll notice the wood nickels made an appearance again
Again.
at the juke joint.
Yeah, yeah, again. Yes. But the thing of it is, it's just like, I know that back in the slavery times, different enslaved people did use bartering system, but that was within the confines of that community, the slave community. And maybe when they became free, they did it. But they still can't take any of that and upgrade themselves. What they can do is get in debt.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's
the
just like the
penance.
the
Yes.
sharecropping
Yes,
system.
exactly.
Moya, as you'll remember when we shot the documentary Reparations Now, we went up to Weed and they showed us the mercantile where they were able to spend their money. So that's basically it. You don't, not getting a paycheck,
No,
not getting money in your hand, but you can come and get whatever you
if you
need
need.
at
And they
this
write your name on the
mercantile store.
paper on the
Yeah.
list, and they keep, you become in debt, you
That's
become
how they
in
keep
debt.
you
That's
in debt.
that's how we
Yes.
keep you in debt. So so
Hmm.
I just saw that. That's what I felt, because Annie could not expand her business. What was she going to expand it with?
Yeah, I remember when we went up to, yeah, it was, yeah, Weed. So when we went up to Weed, there were basically no black businesses. I think we spoke to Mr. Willie Walker, who resided in Weed and grew up in Weed, and he said, yeah, pretty much no black businesses at all.
No. Mm-mm. They couldn't start any. Start them with what? First of all,
Right.
you're not going to the bank. Number one, and number two, they're just not going to let you.
Right. So they
You
don't
know,
want to give you cash in
no.
hand. And I mean,
Mm-mm.
we could just equate this to the reparations movement that we're in right now. They don't want to give you direct cash payments. They just want to give you program after program after program. And we ain't even got one program yet.
Not one program, and these programs don't benefit
Right. They're not going
only
to put
descendants.
cash
It's
in
not
your
this, and it's
hand.
not descendant led program. That's going to be just like the new title of SB 437. Isn't it called? Or what is it? Or is that Kenner? One of them, McKenna. One of them now is called the American Dream, and I'm like, wow. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So they're doing everything in their will to
Right,
strip.
which is a 10% loan
Yeah, and
program.
it's a
So,
ten
like I
percent
said, they
loan.
want to give you goods and services, but do not want to give
Give you
you
cash.
cash in hand.
Mhm.
Just, ju-
In
just
my
like in the
bank.
movie Sinners.
Exactly. You know. Okay. Wooden nickels.
Hmm. Monopoly money.
And you never. Yeah. So.
I didn't notice this, but I did hear another talking head reviewing it, saying that there were differences. No, I guess I was listening to an interview with the set designer, costume and set designer, and there were differences in the stores. So whenever we do our streaming watch party, we'll have to look for this. But they say in the black store on the black side of the street, it was like tools and stuff for
Mm,
working and labor and stuff like that. And then you go to the white side and it's more like, cooking and luxury items and
mm-hmm,
stuff like
mm-hmm,
that,
mm-hmm,
not
mm-hmm.
labor focused.
Intensive.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
items.
Mm. Work
So
for
I'll
your
have to look
food.
for that. Yeah,
Work for your food. Yeah.
probably some
It was
cut
an amazing
flowers.
film. I can't wait to see it again, and then, then you're gonna keep looking at it. You know. Mm-hmm. It was really amazing.
Hmm.
But yes, I would advise everyone. This was a great movie. Um, I can't wait to see it again. Um, yeah.
Yeah, can't wait to see
Mm-hmm.
it again. And definitely touched on different
Mm-hmm.
aspects,
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. There was pretty much something for everyone. We had,
Mm-hmm.
our Asians depicted, whites, even the Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And after Sinners, if you guys saw all the trend with the gingers are black. I saw that
Mhm.
that came about after, depicting the Irish and the black people and sinners and how they wanted to appropriate our cultures. And then all of a sudden, gingers are black and
Well, when the
Irish
Irish
are,
came
and
to
Irish are slaves.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. When the Irish came to America, the Irish was the new black. So we're
Hmm.
not having none of that. So no.
So
But then
yes,
they became white.
so this movie did create a lot
Mm-hmm.
of cultural
Yes.
talking points.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, everyone who's listening to this, please like, share, and subscribe. Do what you need to do. Hit that bell.
And go see Sinners.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. We'll talk to you later. Peace and reparations.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
See ya.